Welcome back to a new version of Professional StarCraft 2 with our first grand finalist, the former world champion Terran in the red, it's Micro Jackson. ByuN, facing off against another world champion, the Italian Stallion in the blue. We have Reynor in a best of 7 Terran versus Zerg showdown, the grand finals of PatchesSC Patch Clash. No, that isn't redundant, but instead the name of a new community balance patch and the biggest tournament held on it so far, with some of the biggest players out there. So before we get started, it'd be incredible if you could smash that like button or maybe even subscribe. Help me kind of the algorithm. And Jimmy, what are we at? Yes, I know it's going to be a little confusing. I know change is 1,890 likes on this video, on this cast. And I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I'd do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully you've had a good day so far, and hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better, as these two load in, ByuN with a 1-game advantage because he won every single series up to this point, and the tournament is enough prestige and enough rounds that that's the advantage he gets going into this best of 7. But Reynor, of course, no slouch, and let's not bury the lead. Unlike Reynor's going into this, this is the PatchesSC community balance patch. No, the name of the, well, yes, the name of the patch is Patches, but that is only because the creator is PatchesSC, which admittedly is slightly confusing. But if you can get past it, then you can get in to the more exciting parts, the changes. So, first things first and least things least, the 12-worker start is back, among a whole slew of other things, and I'm not joking. Almost every unit in the game is changed in some way or affected in some way, and in my humble and modest opinion, a good one. It's not going to be perfectly balanced. It's not going to be curated to the point that these players aren't going to immediately find exploits, but it is created by players of the game. Alright, I know that sounds crazy, but Patches himself is a map maker, currently with multiple maps on the ladder. Washout and Rorschach are his creations. Has built multiple custom mods and organized tournaments. I've played a bunch of this patch so far, and it's just makes StarCraft 2 fun again. Some of the highlights. Larva is now tied to the type of hatchery you have. That's the one I just brought up right there. You can check out everything in the description. It's gonna take a bit, but I'll try to highlight the highlights. The higher level hatchery you have, the faster larva spawns. The basic hatchery is what it was a couple months ago, before all the new patch changes. But once you get down the line and you add in a lair or a hive, larva actually spawns faster, which means there's a benefit to building multiple lairs or multiple hives. The queen can now evolve into a swarm queen, which is much better against ground units, but not as effective at range against air. It's a permanent evolution, like any of the queens so far, but I'm sure we'll get to that. And probably a highlight, and one I know that Reynor has been taking advantage of, roaches with a hive tech upgrade can become 1 supply. Speaking of Zerg, well, now, of course, Terrans are not left out. The Overlord is taken down. But some massive highlights for Terran that I'm not sure. Honestly, I would be the least bit surprised if ByuN just went Marine Marauder Medevac this whole time. But they're not left out either. There's a whole slew of upgrades with actual explanations, which makes them unique in recent patches. The Nuke builds about 50% faster for half the cost. It does a lot less damage to buildings, but can still wipe out most. The Nuke is a zoning tool now. And if we're ever going to add more splash damage to the game, I think nukes are quite the spectacle. But the queens, just basic queens now, not swarm queens. Oh yeah, and some little quality of life stuff, like adding a queen rally point to hatcheries, which somehow has never existed. And I think anyone who actually plays Zerg has always wanted. But so far, neither player really partaking in too much. It's not that basic units were unchanged. It's just the basic interactions, not so much. But with Larva Inject taking a little bit less of a major role in actually evolving the hatcheries, a more dramatic one. Now, another key point is the larva cap is 10 at a hatchery. So even though it can produce faster with a higher level one, that means you can't bank up as much and get this huge swell of units. The Liberator, though, is very ready to start pin cushioning drones, as well as going for the Queen, who's a, let's be honest here, a bit of a larger target. The Marines just right-clicked on the hatchery. Liberator will be taken out. Gets 4 kills. Marines, no stim, no combat shield, just raw Marines here. And the Hellions sliding in towards the third. Reynor's at 60 drones. The Marines in the bank get even more damage. Oh, no! Oh! It's a disaster! Dozens upon dozens of drones getting charbroiled. 13 more in production. Let the Hellions just run by and Reynor. Well, many of those drones incinerated. 19 drones dead. He's going for mass roaches. And, well, he's going to have a bit of a tougher time when he has to rebuild drones after an admittedly kind of a tiny amount of units do critical damage. Concussive Shells is on the way. Bit of a different icon because Concussive Shells now also affects the Reaper Grenade. And there's a later game upgrade where the Reapers get their building grenades back. And if you know, you know. And if you do know and have seen that in action, you're certainly more than likely older than Reynor, because that was over half of his lifetime ago back in Wings of Liberty. But that's a separate upgrade. The gist of it is a much more Brood War-esque. Get a specific upgrade for this unit to give it a late-game functionality. That's a lot of the patch, which I think adds a lot more interesting interactions rather than trying to have a one-size-fits-all and homogenize units into their role from the very start, which means less strategic diversity and easier to balance. But for now, the balance tipped in favor of ByuN overall. Even though the roaches are quite numerous, there's still 2 supply. Though Reynor is working his way up towards Hive rather quickly. Oh yes! How could I bury the lead? Terrans are back, except they're also Zerg. Infested Terrans can be built for the low cost of 20 minerals. The Infestor is now an infested Terran carrier. But they don't cost energy. They instead cost minerals. And you're limited to 4 of them, which I think is actually a really interesting way to do it. Because 1, they're not free then. And 2, there is a much smaller limit than back in the day. But both sides just flirting around with the idea of an engagement, but so far haven't committed to a date yet. ByuN got that critical damage done, but I guess some more key late game things are... Microbial Shroud's gone. Alright, it's gone. The Ghost is back to what it was. In fact, it's overall weaker, has less HP, though it's not a light unit. And Snipe was reverted to the version from a while ago where you can actually interrupt it. But the Raven, if we ever see one, is actually more of a support spellcaster. But I doubt it, from ByuN. Alright, Bifurcated Incubation is on the way. You know, the upgrade, which I'm sure biologists would have a little more insight into. But that will cut the supply cost of roaches in twain. Immediately, just watch for what it completes in Reynor's supply, as every single roach will only cost 1. The evolution to Ravagers will cost more supply. The supply cost of Ravagers is still 3. But, obviously, this allows twice as many roaches to be built. Assuming that's the direction you want to go, because quantity can have a quality all its own. So far, Groove Spine's now finished for the Hydra. The Hydra, instead of having lunge, has access to Ancillary Carapace, which is plus 10 HP at the late game, as a bit more of a stable option behind those roaches. But unfortunately, not stable enough to save the hatchery over to the right side. Siege tanks in position. Fungal catches a bunch of the Marines and Marauders, but he's already done the damage. Ancillary Carapace in production. That Hydra HP Bifurcated Incubation about to complete. The supply cut of roaches, and let's take a look. So Reynor's supply drops to 181, and he's getting pressurized glands. Why did I do that? I don't know. It felt right, though. I stand while I sit by it. Which is quick corrosive bio. It cuts the time of corrosive bio landing about in half. But here we go. The action begins after the 10-minute no-rush period, or something close to it. Roaches on the other side, cutting off some of the reinforcements. Hydras and Lings in production. Ancillary Carapace nearly completed. Reynor's at 86 drones. Fungal thrown out. Catches some of the Marines and Marauders. More caught. Zerglings streaming out. 2-2 upgrades on either side. Hydra's getting slammed by the siege tanks. The Zerglings trying to make their way through, but the siege tank line runs deep, and the field runs red with the blood on both sides. But more of the blood definitely Zerg. Meanwhile, the drops in the bottom left corner going to take out potentially yet another hatchery. The Zerglings come out. No adrenal glands at the moment. Still very much a viable option. The Roaches and Hydras coming together, but the hatchery falling apart. The target fire not quite there. More queens in production. No infested Terrans produced yet. I'm sorry, not pressurized glands. That's the swarm hose one. Rapid expulsion, which should be pretty self-explanatory and a little gross. The quick corrosive bile. Unfortunately, corrosive bile is not very fast if you don't have any Ravagers. One remains. Ghosts on the front line. They can't survive there for long. The Hydras are slowly but surely making their way down, as they don't have the speed upgrade yet, and it's painfully apparent. You can tell by the way it is. Isn't that neat? Burrow, seismic spines. The Lurker. Lurkers now no longer have their adaptive talons upgrade. They can't burrow quite as quickly. But they overall... I gotta read those patch notes again. But I believe they burrow slightly more quickly by default, but the Lurker spines move slower. So that way you get more of that Brood War-esque ability to actually micro against them. But of course, if there's a half dozen Lurkers, the Bio Army, well, there's not a lot of options for microing against it. But the idea is a smaller amount of Lurkers is much easier to deal with, but also potentially more effective because they have better baseline stats. A bit more of a give and take, if you would. A scan towards the gold base. ByuN was battered back, but not beaten down. As he targets another base, lines up a snipe, knocks out a queen, but the Hydra's just chasing down the medevacs. Many of these Marines and Marauders will be left in the unit's loss tab. Actually, every single one of them. But so will yet another hatchery. I'm not sure. So, considering these two players, the patch doesn't change so much that they have to retool their entire strategy. In fact, a significant amount of the changes, I think, going unnoticed or uncared for by both of them. But the real point is the interaction between those units. I don't think there's... I'm just trying to... I have it on another tab here. Jimmy was kind enough to open up a basic web page, which again, you can check the description, and I'd highly encourage it. We might put some of them on the screen during relevant points, but I really feel like it's something that I could have sat here and read out the whole of the patch notes, but let's be honest. All that matters at the end of the day is whether it's fun to watch. As StarCraft 2 is a bit of a spectator sport at this point. And I'm very glad you're spectating here. Like and subscribe. The Lurkers will dunk down. The Nidus is coming forward, but he splits, he stims, and he's tearing right through all of them. The Lurkers, oof. They will eviscerate a big chunk of the bio, but overall, well, the Hydras are chasing. The medevac's out of the way. More command centers. Oh, yeah, command centers are 400 minerals again, because let's not be ridiculous. And a new late game upgrade. Building armor and high-sec auto tracking are removed from the game. Removed from the game. But a significant change. Fire suppression. There's a new late game upgrade for the Terrans called fire suppression, where once you research it, buildings will very slowly repair themselves to 50% if they reach under it. Essentially meaning they can no longer burn down. But it makes them significantly more vulnerable in the late game to most units, since they don't have +2 armor, nor the extra range, on the missile turrets and planetaries. The Ghost still very good against lurkers, very clearly. But is there enough supply over to the right side? Another Nidus on the left. Meanwhile, ByuN scrambling back to defend. He has more army supply, but he can't seem to distribute it well enough to deal with Reynor's army. No Banelings. Infestor underneath. Still not a single infested Terran, but the fungal comes out. Make that 2. The snipes more than enough. I may have lied about the damage interrupting the snipes. We gotta do a little bit of reading. Snipe cannot be interrupted. It's just the Ghost is way squishier itself. Which is much more like the snipe of the Wings of Liberty Ghost, which ByuN should be well aware of as one of the best Terran players of Wings of Liberty. The snipes are lined up. He knocks down a whole bunch of Hydras, but many of the Ghosts will be taken out as well. The snipe energy cost, but also Ghost speed and HP, as well as damage, nerfed significantly. So the Ghost is truly a vessel for the snipe now, as opposed to just an all-around damage unit, like it is in the live patch. But Hydras and Lurkers, neither of these players. So ByuN is missing out on possibly the most important late-game upgrade that was added for Terran. You know it. Well, no, you don't. I don't know why I'm being like this. It is Chrono-boosted Tech Labs. AKA, on the Ghost Academy, you can get accelerated training. Once you have a fusion core, it unlocks accelerated training, which is 30% faster production of Ghosts and Marauders, units that require a tech lab. Oh wait, no. It accelerates the training of all units trained at a barracks with a tech lab, which means Marines as well. Fire suppression is now in production at the engineering bay, as ByuN was probably hitting the hotkeys and not finding the right ones. Can I park here? Sarge, there's a hatchery down there. Oh, I thought it was your mother. That's hurtful, Sarge. Possibly accurate, though. I don't know. Meanwhile, the Zerglings. Here's the siege tank. Has a bit of a different animation as well. I've been noticing that the explosions are somehow more and less dramatic at the same time, but I really like it. There's almost everything, if not everything, has a visual update that makes it quite clear when many of these upgrades are done, which is very helpful, and I think a very important part, especially if you're going to add a whole bunch of upgrades to the game. 70 lurkers on the way for Reynor. Adding to his current count of 5, he's going to have over 20 lurkers. The floor is going to be mostly lurkers at this stage. Another Nidus, the tactical Nidus, a very Brood War-esque way of maneuvering these lurkers around. Oh, that's so many lurkers. Just slicing through the planetary fortress. Meanwhile, a few lurkers over to the right side. It's going to be siege tanks and ghosts as the answer right now for ByuN. Has not partook in the new Raven, which has a repair drone and costs significantly less and can be built. Oh, there's a nuclear missile! Building incredibly quickly. The nuke. The Ghost Academy is now renamed to the Academy, apparently, in case you recognize that one. As it now contains multiple upgrades, not just Ghost-related ones. And now he's just pressing all the buttons. We got, of course, the automated retraction. Medevacs are able to pick up siege tanks, which reverts them into tank mode. And they have to be sieged up again when they're dropped out, but allows you to extract your siege tanks. He's got Crucio Dampener queued up behind it, which reduces the friendly fire of siege tanks by 75%. All these late-game upgrades. And ByuN is 100... The lurkers are on hold fire. Siege tanks smashing the Zerglings. Oh, no. Oh, the scan. A hot pickup, but not hot enough. ByuN had a feeling. But his premonitions came just a bit too late. Nuclear missile is ready. And that nuke lands significantly quicker. But not quick enough to use it mid-fight. Does he have cloak for the ghosts? I believe so. Is that for banshees? I don't know. The cloak icons are exactly the same. Meanwhile, Drop will take out the gold base for now. Reynor has a severe income lead, but ByuN has not really been pushed back that far. Reynor keeps contesting the outer bases, but that hasn't stopped ByuN from getting close to maxing out. Reynor has 7,400 minerals, 1,800 gas in the bank. And I have a feeling ByuN is exploring all these extra upgrades for the first time. That is ByuN in a nutshell. He'll play in anything. He'll play at SC Evo. He's actually one of the best players. He'll play in Patches Mod. He'll play at your niece's quinceañera. He'll play at Vegas 3 nights a week for $20 and a hot dog. ByuN will be there. Him and Hero are the most regular participants in every sort of tournament. And this one is significantly more high profile than most of those other things I listed. But so, because as long as you can make Marines, Marauders, Siege Tanks, and Medevacs, well, ByuN's probably going to do pretty well. But he's trying to find new ways to deal with it as the Lurkers continue to close in. Now, the Lurkers themselves are actually overall slightly worse in pure stats, but Reynor has, the fact that the Ghosts are less capable of being a one-size-fits-all answer is clearly helping out. And Reynor has maintained that economy. He's finally getting Banelings, which have some upgrades of their own. We'll see if he gets there. Liberators. Also, of course, some significant changes. The site advanced ballistics has been rebuffed. And anti-ground now prioritizes larger units. Well, mostly over going for any of the eggs, but threats first, then workers, then larger units. So they're a little bit smarter, but they're back to costing 150 gas. A stronger option, but I feel less of an oppressive one because, well, we'll see if Reynor remembers infested Terrans as well. And whether he needs to be honest, with this much going on. The Marauder's on the way. The laundry list of upgrades. The siege tanks slamming in. You can see there the... Actually, wow, there's a... You can see friendly units being hit have the little Crucio... Huh. I didn't realize the siege tanks now have an animation with their shots. Not only are we updating some of the upgrades, but just the general look of things. Now we just need to add the Brood War siege tank sounds, which are just better. Okay? I guess... I'm not even nostalgic for the Brood War. I didn't play it until after I played StarCraft 2. Sorry, Grandpa. How's the back? Tell me, where's your StarCraft 1 disc? My grandpa actually had one. Fun fact. I didn't realize that till many, many years later. We were going through his things. But he had a bootleg StarCraft 1 disc. It was on a clearly burned CD-ROM. So, ARM 18, which is amazing. And... some posthumous respect there. Obviously. As clearly more cultured than I was. Whatever happened. I mean, he was in the war. And then, obviously, the Brood War. Huh. Positive nostalgia for once. Meanwhile, they'll expect some of us in the wreckage, brothers. A whole lot of bile left behind. As the onslaught continues... Reynor. He's had a few infestors mixed in. ByuN has been struggling to keep up with the sheer amount of Zerg. Though Reynor's starting to mine out now as well. Though clearly with a lot more in the bank. The Ghosts lining up their shots. Reynor is expanding to the north. And ByuN... Greater Spire on the way. gas gathers are back to 2250, their original amount from pre-live patch. Which means you can hold on a little longer, for both sides. And ByuN is maxed out still. Reynor has lost 10,000 more resources. He did get 1 supply roaches, but then proceeded to just give up on roaches entirely. Which is probably still a good move when all this is involved. He didn't get the Baneling morph speed upgrade, but he does have Baneling speed itself. And just this hatchery existing, and then I'm out of here. The double spire. Meanwhile, though, ByuN still with those late game, like the Porcupine Terran, planetary fortresses, ghosts, siege tanks. I don't actually know with Brood Lords. I've played a decent bit of the mod, but honestly, I've not played that much late game. I don't know if Brood Lords had any changes. He hasn't built any Swarm Queens, so nor. Oh. The Brood Lords now have extra damage versus structures. And Broodlings now have timed lives as opposed to just not timed lives, but they lose life over time. So they have more HP, but they lose life, which I think is a way better way to do things, because that means when you do damage to a timed unit, a free unit, there's value, because it will time out quicker. Before, with infested Terrans, Broodlings, Locusts, they could be at 100 HP. 100% HP, 1 second before they spontaneously die. Whereas, if you make it lose life over time, that means there's more dynamic interaction. Where, 1, you can tell how much damage you need to do, and 2, you don't waste damage by actually hitting those units. Not nearly to the same extent. So, and it leaves more room to potentially buff said units, where you can add more HP and it isn't as oppressive as if it had a hard timer. The Broodlord was nerfed originally because of Dark. Dark using Broodlings to create more Broodlings, and he's coming back to us soon. I'm sure he would love this patch, and I hope it gets enough interest that he has an opportunity to do so. So, more info on that between the games, by the way. But the Broodlords are here. Broodlords do more damage to structures. The Broodlings now no longer have a timer, but instead just bleed out over time, as you can see there. The speed zones. The Hydrogen-lings on the left side. ByuN losing a chunk of his supply. He finally got a fusion core. He's adding some Thors in. Caduceus Reactor. I believe that's still Caduceus Reactor, yeah. Oh, wait. They increases the energy regen, and they can heal 2 units at once. The Vikings! There's no anti-air!
Susan! Why does this keep happening? Because the Reynor didn't read the patch notes. How do you know that? I never learned how to read. I was just assuming. You're very judgmental, Susan. Well, look, I'm not a swarm queen, all right? They're the ones who are really bullying people. Oh, now you have a new scapegoat, so you're gonna show it off. That's enough. This doesn't make any sense. We're gonna work on this. You haven't worked a day in your life.
Sorry. Broodlords being added in. The Thord, Reynor is successfully mining from that northern base. ByuN, it does feel very much just kind of pressing all the buttons and seeing what comes out. I believe Thors are effectively the same. Oh no, I lied. Their ground attack is stronger but slower. So it's for more anti-massive targets. But I believe their anti-air attack is identical. That high impact mode, clearly the choice. Hydrolings and Banes over to the left side. As Reynor has filled in the gaps. Advanced ballistics. The siege tanks. The fact that Reynor is mining from that northern base. The fire suppression drones trying to save the fusion core. But the Zerglings will eventually rip it apart. And I feel like ByuN is running out of resources, running out of supply. He still has 115 army supply. And if only he knew that the Raven had a repair drone, which can repair mech units for free, with some caveats. Feel like he'd be in a very strong spot still. But the lurkers moving forward from the north side. The siege tank barely in... Wait. Oh, we had him on hold fire. There's still a nuclear missile in the bank, which he may have forgotten about, which is certainly a concerning thing to forget about. But ByuN struggling to match Reynor on the field means that the Hydras and Lings, well, there's going to be one last push. And it's not like Reynor has a huge bank. In fact, he's not even maxed out. ByuN is still significantly behind. Oh, I may have glossed over one of the most important things that I don't think ByuN used once. Mules can mine gas. Yep. Not nearly at the rate that they mine minerals in comparison to SCVs, but mules can mine gas, which is, I think, more relevant to the early game, obviously, but meanwhile, ByuN just stimming his way through. He's going to take out this base. But he's down to 2 SCVs, which is widely considered to be a relatively low number. As Reynor has just overwhelmed him across the board in a hectic game. 130,000 resources lost. Reynor has mined 15,000 more minerals, 3,000 more gas. Only lost a fraction less than that. Reynor is completely out of money. How many Broodlords? 8 Broodlords. There are 6 Thors, 8 Vikings, some Ghosts underneath. There's Infestors on the way. Neural Parasite is in production. But Reynor neglected it. This is still a dangerous army. ByuN is mining with a few mules, maybe. Blinding Cloud. No, the Vikings take it down. Is there enough anti-air? Is ByuN doing this? Oh, no. Where are the infested Terrans? Neural Parasite is desperately needed, but he doesn't have the energy nor the infestors. And it's coming down to it. The Hydras and this could be a base trade. The Thors, more infestors on the way. As Reynor unable to break this army outright. It's 83 to 108 supply. ByuN has 0 SCVs. He can drop mules. The main base, the Queens. Reynor, well, Reynor doesn't have any mining. Neither of them. They're zero mineral income. The fire suppression does work in the air, by the way, which does create a interesting conundrum for base trades. Where, if you don't actually... Wait, this could be a draw. The Zerglings, he's trying to narrow this down. Reynor has 25 drones. He's long-distance mining. There are 8 infestors with Neural Parasite. Are there any ghosts? He still has a nuclear missile. I think the Neural Parasite might be able to get the job done, though. As, at the end of the day, those Terran units are so strong, the only counter to them is themselves. Modern-day Socrates. Abandon your posts! Flee for your lives! The Thors are moving forward, but there's no detection! Half the Thors turned against him, unable to target the infestors, and Reynor with a quick grab on those Terran units is able to take the victory after 34 minutes. 1,100 Zerglings, 51 lurkers, up against 52 tanks, a whole laundry list of buildings, 17 hatcheries dead, 12 Nidus worms. But I think you can say it was never slow, it was never boring. And while these players certainly not utilizing every last bit of PatchesSC Patch, which is still a amusing and confusing name, definitely a more dynamic one. The key upgrades and changes that I think could have factored in but did not, because the players probably didn't realize, but would in the future. The 30% train time on the Academy for Tech Lab Barracks. Getting those siege tank upgrades from the fusion core could have been absolutely critical for ByuN earlier. And remembering he had the cheap, quick-firing nuclear missile. So, as we get into game number 2/3, because remember, ByuN, I believe, defeated Reynor in the winner's bracket, and he gets a 1-game advantage going in. So make no mistake, clearly, it isn't just a one-sided experience. Reynor was able to take the command of the late game, but I doubt that trend is necessarily a one-sided one. But this is the PatchesSC Versus Mod. If you want to play with it, I think I'll show between the games. I kind of forgot to do that, but just when you create a game, yes, you have to load in the StarCraft 2, which is free, by the way, in case you didn't know, just like liking and subscribing. You create a map, any melee map, which is Lockdown, Steps of War, Golden Wall, whatever. You create with extension mod, and then you can just search PT, all right? Or you can search PatchesSC, but it's the PatchesSC Versus Mod. And you can see a link to all the changes. Quite well formatted, because this was made by people who actually are interested in play the game. And again, is it balanced? Who knows? But actively developed, has a lot of cool ideas, and it's a lot of fun to play. And the more people playing it, the better it gets, because that way we have a much better gauge of how it affects players at all the levels, rather than just the very tippy top, which I feel is, well, there's a lot of discussion about win rates and who won tournaments in 2018. And if I hear another thing about how Zerg has won premier tournaments, and that being used as an argument for balance by people who haven't played the game since we started with 6 workers, I will be... My blood pressure's high enough, is what I'm trying to say. So, as someone who actually plays all versions, and playing this version with 12-worker start, the 8-worker start was a mistake, and I was coming around to the idea for the strategic diversity, but it truly, I feel, most of the changes. Very simply, the changes, the reason we were seeing different sorts of games is just because no one knew what they were doing. But in going back and playing a 12-worker start, which the early game is not very different on the Patches mod, as you can see by 3 CC from ByuN against 3 Hatch with no speed on the way, actually, just Queens against Reapers, but the Reapers. But generally, it feels so much better. It felt like I didn't realize, like, it feels like, oh, I feel okay, all right. And then waking up from a long nap, like a good nap, is what it feels like to go back to the 12-worker start. You didn't realize how much you needed that nap. And let's just pretend the 8-worker start and all the associated random unexplained changes were some sort of collaborative fever dream at Blizzard. And I've said for years, without taking initiative myself, that the only way we're going to get meaningful change is something like this, a community mod with a balanced dictator. And our new balanced dictator for this version is PatchesSC. You might actually, if you're following me very closely, you might recognize him from the collegiate tournament, where he participated, I believe, for Alberta Institute of Technology. I don't want to miss that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he's competed in the World University Team League, which is relatively new, a new version of it, that I was casting not too long ago, the first major finals. So, yes, that means one of our younger players, assuming, and therefore with some active effective and exciting ideas that us more experienced players have already written off many years ago. But here we are, the Zergling count. Trying to get this around. ByuN has been going for Reaper Hellion because it's ByuN, and he's trying to make Reapers work. He didn't end up getting the building grenade upgrade, nor using the concussive shells. Because again, I'm not 100% convinced that ByuN read any of the patch notes. And I don't know if they're localized in Korean, to be honest. But that's not going to stop him from going Marines and Medevacs. And here we are. The 3-2-1-1. A bunch of dudes with drugs, guns, and an innate hatred of things that don't look like them. Just lore-accurate Terran, and always effective. The Marines stimming across, but there's enough queens here. Still haven't seen a single Swarm Queen. So the Swarm Queen is actually significantly better against most ground, has higher ground DPS, and has some upgrades. Well, I hope we just see it, so I don't have to just bring it up, but I love the Swarm Queens. They can no longer inject, but they can eat drones for energy, which is like the opposite thing. There's also an upgrade where they can drop creep underneath themselves. It's expensive. It takes quite a while, but certainly opens up some new opportunities. But Reynor and ByuN, honestly, I think it might be better that they're kind of playing it like they would. Maybe not the live patch, but how they would like 6 months ago. So far, it's looked very similar to the sort of games we would see maybe a year ago, before any of the recent intern patches, except with all the kind of basic adjustments and some of the additional upgrades. Which, now, I'm sure many of the other players in the tournament, which involved a lot of the top players, though many of the other players probably use the patch changes themselves more regularly, like the upgrades, the mechanics. But at the end of the day, it is a real-time strategy game, with real-time being a arguably too strong portion. But there's no getting away from that. The only thing we have to debate is what we want to use that time for. And whether it's sitting back behind the command centers, building up a bunch of ghosts and tanks, or being active on the map with medevacs, or going Hydraling Bane, or... We didn't even see any Ultras. The Ultras... Well, but let's just worry about what's on the field right now. There's so many changes. Definitely worth... And it's so easy to browse the patch notes. So well... I'm sorry. Ultraless Cavern. Perfect opportunity. So the Ultralisk is now back to its original cost of 300, 200. It's large again. Well, its model and hitbox are smaller, but which means it's more microable without actually... No, its model is not smaller, but its actual physical size is smaller, so it's more skinny fat, which means we still get the fantasy of a huge Ultra, but it becomes a little more microable. That's a lot of Zerglings, though, so we'll see if that becomes relevant at all. As the Infestors... Well, ByuN losing a lot of SCVs, but at the same time, the front line, the Queen's being gunned down. Though holding for quite a while. The fourth hatchery is under fire. A critical part of the economy and the production. Fungal thrown out. Zerglings. Oh, target fire on the Infestors. Fungal is huge. And he picks up some of the survivors. ByuN taking terrible, terrible damage. The Ultra is more microable. Its speed upgrade gives it more speed, and there's another upgrade that gives it lifesteal. 10% lifesteal. Like, wow, that's absolutely ridiculous. Remember, the Ghost is more accessible, the siege tanks. And and the cost is increased yet again. So Ultralisk in general, a big buff over their current live version. But, of course, you may have to contend with the Mass Marauder. The Liberator's a little bit more reliable at dealing with them since they prioritize after dealing with all the threats max HP targets. And Ultras have the most HP of any Zerg unit. And tied, I think, for the most HP in the game. No, slightly less than the Battlecruiser. Or the Mothership, I guess, if we count shields, which we should, obviously. But Protoss couldn't make it today. So there's a lot of interesting Protoss changes that we don't have time to go over. As right now, it's time for ByuN the Widowmine! Oh yeah, the Widowmine is back to its full radius, which is more potentially devastating. But it takes significantly longer to build, which I think is a bit more fair. Especially with the significantly more robust big game Zerg. It does feel less egregious than just buffing the Widowmine out of the blue. Drilling Claws is done. Marauders, Liberators, Widowmines are the choice against Ultraling Bane Infestor. Wait, does he have any Banelings? Ultraling Infestor. Not even bothering with the Banes. Zerglings coming forward. Remember, no Microbial Shroud, but Fungal still very much a threat. Still hasn't built a single infested Terran. The Widowmine's thinning out the Zerglings. The Marines and Marauders, the Fungal, he's just cleaving his way through. Reynor chopping through almost everything, though the Widowmines are helping to thin out all but the Ultras. The drop comes out, swarmed immediately, but he built a wall around the entirety of his mineral line to keep the Zerg out, and done a pretty good job so far. But overall, ByuN getting completely overrun. The Widowmines will burrow yet again, slams the point home, takes a medevac with it. But the Zerglings overrunning, and ByuN is burrows and Ultralisk. He forgot Ultralisk speed, which certainly would have helped close things out here. But ByuN is bleeding out on the field. 96 drones for Reynor, as ByuN just simply unable to compete. Those Widowmines are recharging. Reynor has an obscene income lead at this point. Almost no amount of mules able to drag him out of this situation. Corruptors on the way to knock the Liberators and Medevacs out of the sky. 3-3 is about to complete for ByuN, but he's not going to have very many words. Give me, edit that out. He's not going to have very many units with which to use it. The Corruptors may seal the deal. Microing back, the stutter step is good, but the unit count is so damn high. The Queens will take out one Liberator. Spore Crawler helps with another. A few drones dead, not nearly enough. Target fire on the Ultralisk, but the Medevacs will be taken out. And honestly, the Widowmines are not enough. Well, Adrenal Glands is done. The Widowmines are enough. At least to survive a few more seconds. But the Corruptor's eating enough hits. And, well, it's all over. But the G's. That's way too many. GG! Reynor overruns the field. He started the new Baneling upgrade, which is optimized bioaccumulation. Heals the Ultralisk by 10% of damage dealt, which I would love to see, but certainly would have not helped ByuN's position. A quite straightforward. ByuN tried the double medevac drop, did not get the momentum, and was unable to turn it around. Reynor takes 2, and he takes the lead over ByuN's winner's bracket advantage. There is a chance that some of the changes... I love this, by the way. we can see the version of the mod whenever we load in, which means that some of the changes may have been different when this game was played, which is not long ago. It's just that's what happens when you have players developing the mod. So, for those who don't know, this is the PatchesSC Patch Clash, but it's part, I believe, of the Patches Circuit, which got a sponsorship of $5,000, making it one of the largest tournaments of the year, and I fully support it. I don't... Well, I put some into the... If you'd like to support directly Patch's work on the patch, never get old. There's a Ko-Fi page, coffee page, I guess. I read it as Ko-Fi. Anyways, you can find it. Jimmy, put it in the description, in the comments, because no one ever reads the description. It's mostly just there for the algorithm. Whatever. I don't know. Not Al Gore. Sorry. But if you'd like to support, I think already the work done, the clear polish on... In fact, we haven't seen even a fraction. There's so much, especially with Protoss as well. Little animations and changes. And actively changing. And again, it's not going to be perfectly balanced. But we don't have to rely on the whims of an intern getting a quick bathroom break every 3 weeks in order to do a hot fix that may or may not break the entire... We'll see. There's already rumors of either reverting or severely changing the live patch after BlizzCon, but I'm kind of sick of relying on rumors of whispers of an intern or team or whoever coming up with completely unexplained changes that may or may not change balance dramatically. Like, it doesn't... At least we know who to complain to now, which is dangerous, all right? Like, there's a reason.
Stop right there!
No, not now, Brenda. I'm trying to explain.
I'm not on your time. It's our time, all right? All right? I'm gonna become a swarm queen when I grow up. You are 93 years old. In queen years...
Sorry. So, there's a reason why after David Kim moved on, no one named themselves balance designer. It's because of the absolutely undeserved... Well, people on the internet really suck. So, that's the summary. So, I think it's important to remember that the entire point of this, and the reason anyone does this, is not... Patches has been developing this for over a year for free. Okay? Because he likes doing it. Alongside several other contributors. But for the love of the game. To show good games for the fans. And that's what we desperately need. Is someone competent and coherent. Because even if you don't agree with all the changes, you can see why and how they're made. And there's a significant ability to change them if something's broken, bugged, whatever. I would trust someone who's proven themselves as a member of the community more than seasonal Blizzard intern at this point. And probably for the last 5 years. And unfortunately, the Balance Council of professional players in StarCraft 2, designing by committee also, as we've proven, doesn't work very well. Because it's in pro players' best interests to be successful, which creates an innate conflict of interest. So, what is this? It's a mass Zergling Queen drop. And
we've arrived!
Are those Swarm Queens? Tell me those are Swarm Queens. Oh yeah, you don't need... They're not Swarm Queens, but... you don't need a lair. You only need an Evo chamber. But you do usually need more than this, as the wall is still holding. Looks like the Zerglings will eventually get in, but kind of the queens on their own weren't enough. He's gonna break through, but... Okay, well, this is a disaster.
drops the supply, which does heal, just not as much. He's targeting the... Oh, no, that's the full Overlord. Sure. Yeah, it's too many Marines. Even with 3CC, Reynor tries the all-in, and swing and a miss. It's a complete and utter failure here. This is a disaster. And there he goes. ByuN strikes back, and we'll tie up the series. And now we go to... All right, you've heard of Patches, but have you heard of Patches? We're going to go to one of the maps Patches has in the map pool. The one he created. In my opinion, one of the most beautiful. I think, a lot of people commenting on it many months ago when we were doing the map contest. Just impressed by the look. Here on Washout. Which has some interesting but not oppressive ideas. I just want to talk about map... Like, I've talked about designing or balancing through maps, which is hard to do coherently because generally every bit of terrain, like every set of rocks, every choke point, every ramp, is just another way of saying this is good for Terran. But at the same time, you need a lot of those, otherwise the ideal strategy would always be make 200 Zerglings. So, this is why Manx trying to hold against the Zerg in that big square just didn't work out. Cinematically. But it has a mixed gold base, but also rock towers that you could drop to destroy some of your opponent's minerals. There's several lanes of attack, either around the sides, around the outside, or directly down the center. Oh, I forgot I was going to show how to load into it. Maybe at the very end, because, you know, people will skip. Not you. You're listening right now. And if you're listening right now, shout out. By the way, thank you. You're breathtaking, handsome, beautiful, intelligent. And you can prove that by simply liking and subscribing. But thank you for watching. I hope it makes your day a little bit better. I was really debating, as I talked about before, how to demonstrate this mod. This patch, or Patches patch. But I think just showing the games and talking a bit of a meta discussion, let's be honest, but it needs to be said. But instead of trying to just sit there and read out, admittedly, quite an encyclopedia of patch notes, I guess the point at the end of the day is if the games aren't good, it doesn't matter about the patch at all. And so far, despite both players clearly being less than fully fluent in the changes, clearly creating some fun and interesting games of all stages. Like Winter Zerg has won every game that they didn't fail in all-in. Okay, well, if that continues, then we might have an issue. But here comes ByuN with his Reapers. And this would be... Swarm Queens require an evolution chamber. Oh yeah, Queens are 150 minerals again. The basic ones. Welcome back. But the Swarm Queens are 50 minerals more and require an Evo chamber. So, but I think a much better answer to at least a couple of them would be great against the Reapers. But instead... chicanerous and deplorable. Brenda, are you talking to the Reapers? Shut up, Susan! Shut up. Why are you so mean? Repressed trauma from the war. That was 4 years ago. It was actually 28 years ago. Sorry. Queen assassinated. No evolution chamber. He's got Zergling speed on the way. Reynor does have the third base significantly more quickly than you might expect, but that means a delay in the Zergling speed and has led to the Reapers finding a lot more success here. Double engineering bay. ByuN gonna try the full macro
ultra late, well, not ultra late game, but the upgrade rush strategy alongside the double medevac. Actually, no, not even the is he mining gas with mules? So, very key point. It also creates, well, the most interesting part is that I found is the ability to go double starport battlecruiser on one base reliably. So if that didn't get you Terran players excited. But mules now harvest Vespene at a rate of 1.6 times another SCV. And most importantly, they can do it in addition to the SCVs, just like with the minerals, giving them additional income over the top. Protoss, for example, can chrono boost assimilators. In Zerg, they have cheaper queens, again, and they get more larva production off of lair. So the macro mechanics overall buffed and changed for all of the races. And the ability to get more gas more quickly for both Protoss and Terran certainly opens up some possibilities, none of which ByuN has explored in any way. Because it is ByuN, and he's incredibly good at microing Reapers, Marines, and Medevacs, and he's going to keep doing it till it stops working. And it's kind of not worked against Reynor here, but it still very much has the possibility to do so. And also, things that don't work against Reynor still almost certainly work against everyone who isn't named Cyril as well, so. And there's still an opportunity. The queens. Swarm Queen! I've arrived! Brenda, what is wrong with you? You mean what is right with me? It's time for revenge! You're gonna hurt yourself talking like that. Yeah, almost certainly, but the Terrans hurt more! The Swarm Queen online. Significantly less anti-air range, but way more anti-ground. Is it enough to deal with the Hellbats? He pulls the drones. He needs to deal with the Hellbats. He needed more than one Swarm Queen. But Brenda rules alone. Over a throne of bones. She will be the last to die, but taken down. Not exactly the ideal demonstration, because you're supposed to build like 4 or 5 of them in order to have early defense. But instead, ByuN just tearing through absolutely everything. Single queen at the back, microing that medevac over to the side. And the damage is done. Reynor's down to 42 drones against 57 SCVs. If he had like 4 or 5 Swarm Queens, he would have held that so easy. The Swarm Queens are armored units, unlike the basic queens. Fun fact. But, they get +1 base armor, and they have way more damage. I believe it's 10 damage a hit at 1 more range compared to 6 or 7 from basic queens. As well as having, I'm not sure if they have more HP, but either way, definitely worth it. And perfect against Hellbat Marines. Hell Marines. Hellbats are no longer biological units, because that never made any sense, even though they have bat in the name. But they do have more HP. And either way, it doesn't seem like it matters. As ByuN, burning 80 across the countryside, takes another one. And he goes to match point. Just like that. Reynor underutilized. It may have been a misclick, which is a bit annoying in my opinion. I don't even know if he did it on purpose, because he only built 1. But, well, ByuN takes 2. So let's bring up our statisticals here. Of course, again, this is your Prima strategy guide. Oh, a new pylon was added with the newest patch. What? Warp in with shields, a conduit pylon. How much does this? 400 life, 400 shield. Anyways, we're not talking about Protoss right now. But I'll be streaming the patch, and I have already streamed some of it on the second channel, Winter Gaming TV. The mothership creates a passive power field. Fun fact. Anyways. The Queen, ground damage is nerfed. Anti-air damage, slightly buffed. Speed on creep is slightly higher. And transfuse can be used off creep. The Swarm Queen, though, is more HP, a little bit less base speed, is 3 supply, but 12 damage at 0.7 attack speed against ground. It doesn't have more range, I lied. As opposed to, that is significantly higher DPS, but the range against air is only 3.5. So the intent is an anti-ground queen that can technically hit up if needed, so it doesn't completely overlap the usage. And there's also, well, they no longer have transfuse, but they have devour drone, where you can eat a worker to produce energy, as well as some upgrades that passively generate creep and increase their armor. So, oh yeah, Zerglings without speed have slightly more speed on creep. There's a whole laundry list here. Alright, that is the most major early game change that Reynor clearly not utilizing against that early aggression. I hope he realizes. Of course, there's no change in it now, but I hope for this game he realizes how effective that was. The fact that she lived the longest, not necessarily, it's a bit of confirmation bias, but ByuN gonna go 3cc into mass bio because of course he is. So I do want to point out, since it seems like ByuN will not be utilizing it at all, the Raven with a whole slew of changes. Yeah, that's a list. It no longer requires a tech lab. It costs only 100. It builds faster, more HP. It now has a fake attack that keeps it from running into the enemy. And instead of anti-armor missile, has repair drone, which repairs mech units nearby, only units, up to 200 over 30 seconds for free. So clearly intended as a mech support tool, and can be built off of a reactored starport, which might be completely and utterly broken. I would love to see someone use it. Just like, so those are probably, the Raven is effectively, almost effectively a new unit, just like the Swarm Queen is a new unit that is still a queen at heart, but not maybe in practice. So. Which means you're going to have to keep watching and play yourself. So I want to point out, the AI is actually, so the AI in StarCraft 2 was designed for the 12 worker start anyways. It doesn't, to my understanding, use any of the new changes with the Patches mod. But I played against it, the Elite AI, and I'll admit I wasn't focusing very hard, but I lost to it because it's just competent. And then, of course, I beat it when I was focusing. But what I'm trying to say is playing this mod against the AI is perfectly plausible and should give you a pretty good idea against a relatively competent opponent. Of course, you can find opponents by just either loading it up, going to my Discord, or better patches, or Hushang's, but some of the biggest proponents. But you don't need to get bullied by people who, let's be honest, are probably a little higher level. Playing against the AI is perfectly plausible. And honestly, it's worth it to just try out some of the upgrades and the animations and stuff, or the changes. We got Carapace upgrade on the way. ByuN's gonna go for the bio yet again. Of course he is. A blessing and a curse of ByuN being so good at this style of Terran. Not that Reynor has been particularly original himself. He got the one supply roach upgrade in game 1, and then stopped building roaches after it finished. We've got all the upgrades finishing. Both players with the full macro. We got 1/1, +1 carapace. The melee attack is pretty far behind. No baneling nest out of Reynor. So Muta's also got a change. They have more range, but less regen. And the Spire is back to costing 200. So generally, but the Mutas feel significantly nicer to use, though more vulnerable to direct damage units. So I would love to see Reynor try them out, but unfortunately, we don't always get what we want. Sometimes we can get what we need. And apparently what he needs is an infestation pit. Full macro. The fact he's not building a baneling nest is wild. Relying on that mass circling. And still we haven't seen any It's interesting to give layers and hives more larva production. Which, there's never been a reason to build more than one in the past. The only thing they've gotten in the past is more HP. They get 500 more HP. They start at 1500, 500 more for layer, and then hive. But functionally, no other upgrades. But PatchesSC Mod gives them faster larva production and more natural larva cap. AKA the amount of larva the hatchery will produce itself, up to a certain threshold. But the larva floor is raised, but the larva ceiling is lower. Remember at 10 larva max per hatchery. So, as opposed to 20 in the live game. Very much incentivizing more macro hatches. Which I like a lot. And Reynor clearly has not utilized yet. Concussive shells on the way. Those Widowmons thrown out. The Zerglings. Widowmines. So, they might have the larger radius, but they didn't... The speed on their firing has been reverted. So, the Widowmines have 1.75 radius, as opposed to 1.5. But they don't get that 20% firing speed buff that they did in the newest live patch, the intern patch. Ultraless Cavern is on the way. I just want to see one infested Terran. I can't believe he hasn't misclicked it. So the infestor can hold up to 4 of them. It's now a mini carrier. But he's chosen 0 as the number so far. The Marines down the center. Zergling counter. Chew Toy Depot doing its job perfectly. There's the drop in the main. As Reynor scrambling around with the Zerglings. ByuN takes out the hatchery down the center. Queens congregating. Zerglings dealt with it. ByuN losing a couple SCVs. The supply depot's being torn down. Ultralisk Cavern now complete. Immediately built an Ultralisk. The drop finding another opportunity. The drone count is still relatively healthy. Chitinous plating on the way, +2 melee. More units caught. ByuN. The M&M. No indications. That Academy upgrade would certainly be helpful in pumping out the Marauders. But he's building 13 Marines at a time. Which, once those Ultralisks come trundling across the field, is going to be... Oh, I think the Widowmines are burrowed and preventing him from raising his depot, which is a bit of an own goal there, as the Zerglings will get in. He has 8 barracks, most of them at the natural. A few Zerglings get into the main, because he clearly moved one. 11 SCVs dead, and ByuN losing a significant amount of momentum here. Chitinous plating done. No anabolic synth ultra speed now has been started though. Anabolic synthesis. There it is. I do love all the new Zerg upgrades in there. Apparently, according to Patches, a biology major helped him with the names. So they are biology accurate names for the new Zerg upgrades. From Volant cuticles to optimized bioaccumulation to... Okay, I swear there's more. The pressurized glands. That one probably didn't take it. I think that one's bifurcated incubation, catalyzed morphogenesis. Definitely some Abathur approved upgrades. The main base. Now, if we watch closely, we can watch larva spawn. How exciting. Actually is kind of relevant. The speed at which the hive spawns larva has a cap of, I think, just 10 straight up. So the hive itself is better than Injex overall. That's a lot of bio, but not a lot of medevacs. He literally has... It's just 3/3 stim combat shield and concussive shells. It's ByuN. Of course. Optimized bioaccumulation is on the way, but the bio has accumulated way too close together, and the Ultras are cleaving through all of it, eviscerating the entire army, and Reynor ties it up. We're going to game number 7. ByuN with a relatively uninspired strategy, whereas Reynor has refined his. And he strikes back to bring us to the final match. We're going to another of Patches' maps, Rorschach. And this map is our most interesting, and honestly, our most vetoed of, well, actually, no, I take that back. The 4-player maps. We didn't get a single 4-player map here. So, going to game number 7. Very interesting. Players just do not like... That's what happens, and that's why I think the Balance Council ended up being not bad, but certainly not the level of change that's the design by committee sort of feeling. And eventually getting so... paring down so many changes to the point that the average... even the average player doesn't care too much. If we're gonna move fast and break things, we still have to keep moving. That's the problem with, like, the intern style of Patches, where we just throw a bunch of shit at the wall and see what sticks, because even if it does, it still smells like shit. So that's how I feel about the 8-worker patch and the hotfixes, is what sort of unhappy surprise are we waking up to today, sometimes in the middle of tournaments? It's just unprofessional. Like... And it, in many ways, messes with people's livelihoods, including my own. All right? I'm less affected directly by the patch. Like, it's a good thing for me in the short run if we do patches to StarCraft 2. Not the creator, the Blizzard's moves. But in the long run, if people don't want to watch anymore, they don't watch the videos, and therefore aren't watching the ads on said videos, that's not good. It's not good for me. It's not good for the pros. It's not good for you, who enjoys watching StarCraft too, hopefully. Hopefully it makes your day at least a little bit better. So, the idea of, like, a confusing and unknowable god dropping massive changes to the game from the sky and then fucking off for 9 months, which seems... you know, on brand for most gods, but it's like, why, though? No, don't question it. The intern works in mysterious ways. Whereas Patches works in very clearly documented ways. As you can see, even some of the changes All the ones in green are the newest version of the patch, which is already 1 or 2 past what we're watching here in this match. I miss having basic explanations of why we're making massive game-breaking changes. Color me spoiled. But that's just me. Jimmy, remind me to show how to play the patch after this. Yeah, I'm gonna forget too. Sorry. Again. Melee map extension. Here's my goal. After you watch this video, and I assume I noticed some other your favorite Dutch casters, I believe. You know the one. No, the other one. Going to be casting some of the matches as well. Oh, no, the other one is casting live. Well, Roddy is the one casting live. The other Dutch casters, more stately pace like myself from replays. But, no, the other Dutch... Sorry. But, here's the goal. Here's a actionable goal that is absolutely free. I want to get the Versus mod on the front page of extension mods in SC2. The most played extension mods. Yes, where Big Game Hunters has been #1 for literally 16 years straight. I know, it's not a huge, visible thing. Unlike Swarm Queens. Hello? Why do you think you're better than us? 'Cause I am. Brenda. Getting a big head. Literally! Another Swarm Queen! It's happening! And ByuN's going back! Oh my. I really hope people didn't turn off the video until this game. I was hoping that eventually we might get actual demonstration of a more, a larger list of the changes. So, we've got Swarm Queens added in. We've got multiple armories. But yeah, the extension mods, like SC Evo, is on the front page. The front page of the list, so you don't have to scroll. I know, right? There are dozens of us. But let's get the Patches Versus Mod up there. Again, just gotta search PT. Yes, this is I know! You're 37 years old. You haven't played StarCraft 2 regularly for probably half a decade. You've got responsibilities. Yes, sure, you were Diamond, maybe even Masters in Wings of Liberty. And you probably could do that today. It's just you don't have the time. Okay, it's work. It's children. Yeah. Sorry. A little. You've just got responsibilities. It never seems to end. And, you know, you get home, you're so tired. Or you're at home so tired. It's just tired all the time. What's up with that? But... you know, there's time. It doesn't take that long to play a game of StarCraft 2, so hopefully it makes your day a little bit better. The Swarm Queen's added in. A third Swarm Queen now. And just battling heads up. And the Banelings crashing. They're still light units. It's just they have more HP. Those Hellbats there. It's got Blue Flame on the way. Magfield Accelerator is going to be going Battle Mag. Liberator sieging up the Healing Shrine because, well, if I can't have it, neither can you. Air units unable to partake. More Swarm Queens on the way. As Reynor. Well, it's going to be Hell Clones. Cyclones are generally the same, but they now have a buff called Hurricane Engines, where they get a speed upgrade. They build, so slightly less oppressive because their lock-on damage now is affected by armor, and their lock-on bonus is only against armored. Which also includes Swarm Queens, by the way. But they're less effective against Lings and Hydras. But more effective, potentially, against Roaches, Swarm Queens, and a lot of air options as well. Liberator taken out. Hurricane engines on the way. That cyclone speed that should allow them to keep up with the Hellions. The Zerglings looking for the wraparound. Hive is already on the way for Reynor. 8 minutes in. Not the quickest ever, but certainly up there. Remember, we're on a 12-worker start, so the economy definitely starts off a little bit stronger. A lot of bit stronger, let's be honest. The Swarm Queens. Also, I believe this is a campaign look, or is it just Zagara? But scaled down slightly. Either way. Amazing. Three more factories on the way. The weapons of mass production for ByuN. We've got the Hydraling Bane, already plenty of production. Oh, the Blue Flame Hellions incinerating the Zerglings. A few of the Cyclones getting caught. The Hurricane engines are done, but not done enough. The Zerglings getting well done by the Hellions, but there's so many more of them. Banelings crashing through. ByuN beaten back. And trying to escape, but there's just too many of them. We cannot get out. They cannot get out, actually. More relevantly. Oh yeah, the sensor tower now pulses with a larger range as opposed to... He's getting Swarm Queen Osteoderm Growth. Swarm Queen armor, which will help against the Cyclones. As again, that lock-on is no longer spell damage. Though the Magfield Accelerator gives them bonuses to armored, so... I don't know if Swarm Queen... He's just pressing the button. Finally, in Game 7, both players exploring somewhat different compositions, which, you know, better late than never. Who does it favor? I absolutely have no idea, and I love that for me. Right now, the Hell Clones, those Cyclones so speedy. I think only marginally slower than the Hellions. They might actually be the same speed. Which definitely helps out in keeping this army together. Building some siege tanks at the back, but ancillary carapace for the Hydralisks. Throw the fire. And also the Fury. These two. Reynor is banking money, but not so much that he can just throw away the army over and over. Whereas ByuN is locking down the bases on his side. Reynor with no further tech. The Cyclones will lock on, but the Banelings are rolling in. He doesn't have that Morphogenesis. The Baneling... I didn't even explain what it does, but the Baneling morph speed and life regen upgrade. Banelings will morph 50% faster and have a ton of life regen, which is mostly for countering things like Storm. Because Banelings, of course, don't regen from attacking. Yikes, right? 20 SCV is dead. Adrenal Gland's not even done yet, but ByuN trapped in a prison of his own design. Now the Zergling's trying to break out. But the Cyclones turning things around. 138 Zerglings and 7 Hydralisks dead. But of course he took out a bunch of Hellions, several Cyclones, and 20 SCVs. So it wasn't all bad. The army strung out. The siege tanks on their own. And the Zerglings will surround. 2-2 is done for ByuN. You can kind of tell in how long it's taken those Zerglings to claw apart the tanks. And in fact, a couple of them may live, which is kind of a huge deal. Hydralings and Bane Cyclones still locking on the chase. There are 3 orbital commands, so not unlimited scans. Though Reynor, I'm sure, not a fan. Will retreat across most of the land. His creep spread. He didn't get his subdermal follicles, so the Swarm Queens won't be able to creep spread at a far accelerated pace. So, they are certainly working on it. Another round of creep. Spire's on the way. And the wraparound. The Zergling's still much faster than the clones. And he holds them in place. And a whole bunch of Cyclones will be torn to shreds, I say. Down they go. How many? He got 16 cyclones. Still ByuN building them. Reynor just... Oh, there we are. These subdermal creep follicles now. Adding those beautiful creepy follicles to the bottom of or whatever part of the queen they, Anyways. Should be a very interesting chain. See how much value he gets out of it. As those are... He does have the +2 armor, which will give queens with +3. Only 1 less armor than Ultralisks. So Swarm Queens becoming one of the tankiest units. Unfortunately, the Cyclones still definitely a strong counter at cutting right through. But some of the transfuses will keep them going. The mag field... Oh, not quite enough. The transfuses keep it together. 12 SCVs dead as the Hydras and Lings broke through the south side. Now on the chase. Overrunning the field. +3 Carapace. And ByuN. The Cyclones locking on and holding the line for now. Greater Spire is on the way. As Reynor... The thing is... ByuN continues building Cyclones. Reynor has not successfully forced him into mass siege tank. Which is the idea with the Hydraling. As... You're supposed to eventually build tanks, but with the Cyclones being significantly faster, ByuN seems comfortable enough. The Swarm Queens, now spreading their very own creep, and of course they can place creep tumors on set creep, which means you can get creep across the map incredibly quick. We'll see how much value he gets out of it. If he just loses all the Swarm Queens immediately, I'm going to be very upset. More of the Hell Clones. No Banelings finally being added in. But the Swarm Queens are on their own. Are the reinforcements there to help? Oh no, the transfuses are holding on. But where are the reinforcements? Almost every single one of the Swarm Queens is going to be taken down. Of course. Moments before they're able to utilize their actual upgrades. 5 Corruptors are on the way, but it's still more Hell Clones. The Battle Mech. Finding, even though the Cyclones are arguably worse statistically, the ability to outmaneuver the Hydras and Lings cannot be underestimated. And with no infestors, it seems like Reynor has no easy way to track them down. 92 SCVs against 91 drones. ByuN has survived, and indeed he has thrived. Burrow of Banelings. Yeah, we're saying it like that. But scouted out, and now the scan count is so damn high. 5 orbitals. He scanned the Broodlords.
Vespine Geyser exhausted.
That's not a good sign for Reynor. Obviously. Three Thors, 2 Vikings for the full Nordic mythology composition. The Broodlords trying to contest. Locks on. The Broods. The Cyclones doing a incredible job. And now 4 Thors. And however many years ago ByuN started his career is still going to find the same answer. All right, asking himself, which of these truths are self-evident? All right. Should Terran be forced into bio? Or should you be able to go mech? Should Terran have 2 viable unit compositions and the other races have none? Real important questions that the Terran committee is constantly asking. But so far unanswered. The Thors are here, but the Hydras and Lings still underneath, and there's not enough Broodlords that the Thors are necessarily the hardest counter, but we're hurtling towards that same sort of scenario that we found in game number 1, where Reynor doesn't have a huge amount in the bank, but he has the Broods, and they must be dealt with.
goes into high impact mode, and it'll certainly help. The Vikings added in. Broodlord's getting bashed out of the sky, but the Hydras and Lings take down the Thors. The Cyclones locking on. The Vikings knocked out. 3 Broodlords survive. More mech on the way. ByuN looking like the underdog right now. But he has a lot to fall back to. It's just 3 Broodlords here. The Broodlings, arguably better. They do have +3/3 on the ground, but a single Thor. The Queens can transfuse off a creep. The Swarm Queens went extinct a while ago, but they could be re-evolved. The Hydras and Lynx fighting over the base. He really needs to deny additional mining. Reynor actually is behind on income. And as the first 3-4 bases mined out, denying the base to the south the moment it lands, denying the center. The gold base is mining for Reynor. Incredibly important in all this. 10 more SCVs dead. But ByuN, the blinding cloud could be helpful. You actually just yank some of these out. Not sure if yanking the Vikings actually just got the Vipers killed. And wait a second. How many Thors underneath? Enough. Chasing down the last Broodlord, and Reynor is running out of real estate. He's running out of units. Oh no, the Vipers, an expensive yet impotent choice. He yanked the Vikings closer to the Vipers, getting themselves killed. And suddenly ByuN will take the supply lead. Reynor just drained his entire bank. And the heavy metal composition. 5 Vipers on the way. I gotta quickly, did Vipers get any changes? Vipers Consume was nerfed, but yes, it was nerfed. But it now has a Phantom auto attack, which means it doesn't just fly into its death necessarily, which may actually be awkward for some players. But blinding, oh, it's not working. This is not it. The Vipers, blinding cloud doesn't do nearly enough here. Doesn't help against the Vikings. He could use the healing shrine for the Hydras, so of course he doesn't necessarily want to put himself where the siege tanks could obliterate him. Healing Shrine does not counteract the damage of even a single siege tank in DPS. The Vipers consuming through the hatcheries. Significantly less efficient than it was. The Cyclones and the Hellbats cauterizing the base to the north. Zerglings coming up. Getting incinerated. And he might be able to deal with this, but at what cost? So, ByuN, well, ByuN is not at 200 supply. But so far, Reynor, actually, it's at remarkably close. Though, ByuN has lost 4,000 less gas. Which very well could factor in Mass Viper, as the unit compositions have been effectively reset for both sides. The Thors and almost all the siege tanks were removed. It's back to Hell Clones and Vikings. Very mobile compositions for both sides. The Vipers just for mass kidnapping of most Terran units here. In fact, he could probably yank out all of the Cyclones simultaneously. All he has to do is get in range, which, you know, is the hard part. Get over here! Gets 1, gets 2. This hatchery never actually died, Reynor. Taking advantage of that. The Vipers. Transfuse from the Queens. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Another one. Another one. Pulls out half the Terran army and picks it apart. But the other half is still very dangerous to the Hydras, even with their extra HP. Now with 100 HP baseline. Which is quite a thing. Five more gas geysers on the way. Wait, what? I guess he's filling in every single one he didn't take, because right now he has almost none. But ByuN is restabilizing. He took out the gold, and if he's able to mine from the southern base, well, he's a permanent resident. Reynor's a permanent resident of Troubletown, then. As he hasn't been able to break through while ByuN had
arguably an income disadvantage. Now, he hasn't tried the infestors. Honestly, I feel like that's the missing piece here, is infestors. And potentially infested Terrans to help out, but without fungal, holding down these cyclones has been an almost impossible endeavor. Even Neural Parasite is quite good, but another round of drones will get incinerated. The Zerglings, a single Broodlord on the way, but it feels like Reynor grasping at straws even while his Vipers look for more places to put theirs. There's so many. So, we're missing out on the Roach Ravager and the Fungal. I think this would have been a great opportunity. Well, you know, hindsight is 2020. And who knows? Maybe if we played this mod for weeks or months, then players will figure out that certain things are just not worth it. Either the cost or the time, but mass of roaches. 200 supply of 1 supply roaches. So like 100 roaches and 20 ravagers. With the speed corrosive bile. But now the Viking flock. A Scandinavia of Vikings over here. Still though, ByuN, his supply is not overwhelming. The Broodlords. Reynor actually has more army supplies. Drones have been getting combusted. Parasitic Bomb. He's got mech units in the Healing Shrine, which is going to make him that much harder to take out. The Vikings, awkwardly on the blocker there. The Hydras withstanding a whole lot of fire. And again, another back and forth trade over the last minute. ByuN has actually, well, he's destroyed more resources. Reynor is reestablishing. He's gotten the gold base again. He's trying to mine from the southern part of the map. ByuN has the income lead. But another wave. And the Hydras and Lynx, he has to break through here. This is the last army. He just doesn't have the income. 2 infestors on the way. Break in case of emergency. The classic infestor move. But is it just in time? Or is it too little too late? The Hydras easily taking out the Thors. And even the Hellions having some trouble dealing with them. He only has +1 ranged attack. Which is certainly an oversight. +3 attack. Oh no. I don't think he realized it at any point. That's actually a disaster. +1 ranged attack is not enough. Like, if he had +3, well, it's far too late now. Fighting to the end. The infestors come out. But there's just nothing left. Gee. Reynor. Overrun as ByuN locks it down with the battle mech in game number 7. ByuN is your Patch Clash champion. The biggest tournament for the mod so far, with even larger ones to come. But, well, in order to create a game, again, play against the AI. All you gotta do is pick your favorite map, and you can search PT PatchesSC Versus Mod. And where do we want to get it? We want to get it to top played, which a little bit of work to do. Oh yeah, a lot of work to do. Maybe I scrolled past it, but SC Evo up there. Anyways, Patches Versus Mod. Fun fact: you can bookmark it as well. Create a lobby, and boom, there you go. Find the patch changes on the description, and all of that. But it works perfectly. Also, you can choose a starting worker count anywhere from 4 to 12, just in case you think that's going to solve the any particular issue or benefit the game. But I would say 12 would be the ideal, personally. So, I certainly hope you enjoyed. Make sure to check out the mod and give some honest feedback on how the games felt to watch. I tried to keep a balance between describing all the changes and, you know, the game itself, but I think it was a pretty good demonstration, despite the players clearly adapting on the fly, which is more fun, in my opinion, even at this day and age. But I hope I made your day at least a little bit better. Significant chunk of it. If you got the means and motivation, it'd be awesome to check out Patreon, YouTube membership, but I hear liking and subscribing. Still free, at least for now. Thank you to our top tier patrons and YouTube members. Big Jiggy Decro, Devin Dork, Mag1, Mario, P, Sasquatch. Glad you still enjoy. And everyone else, and them, make sure to check out this video. Jimmy picked it out just for you. So, thank you for watching. Hope to see you next time. Good luck. Have fun. Oh, check out the second channel, Winter Gaming TV, to see me play / more of the mod as well. And stay chill.